So I wanted to start recording right away because you're like me. You like to catch it organically. You want to get it all caught. And I noticed right off the bat, I swear. Do you swear?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, of course.
I know you had your shit sorted out. I looked at you. I'm like, oh, this guy's got his shit sorted out. All right, let's start recording right now. Let's catch it organically, Alan Lazarus.
We've been doing a podcast for a long time, and for the longest time, we refused to edit anything. And the reason why is because there's more incentive to become better at speaking.
You're already drinking my Kool-Aid, my friend. So I don't know. You don't know. So I would expect you to know nothing about me. I would expect you to know nothing about the show. So I'm going to quickly tell you something in 30 seconds. I just posted something on LinkedIn today. So I do a live talk show, Alan. I go live 7 days a week at noon Central Time for exactly the reason you just talked about. And it's my brand. I'm a brand that shows up every single day. I've built a career on showing up every single day. And it's a brand built on accountability, showing somebody how to show up every single day. But more importantly, if I say something, I'm going to be accountable for my words. So if I say something that might make you feel not good, well, then I got to maybe correct how I'm going to say that. Or, so you know what I mean? So there's something magical. I grew up with live. There's something magical with live. I get everybody doing their podcasts and I understand it. And I'm also a marketing expert. So I'm also adopted the branding of like Mark Bianoff did when he launched Salesforce.com, the no software to the logo. So I'm no podcast. I got to slice through the podcast logo. I do a show, not a podcast. We do a live show, not a podcast. So
it's kind of cool. This is the first time I've ever, and by the way, I did listen. So I have heard some of your lives.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I did listen. So I do know of you. I do know of your show. I did my research. I read the bio and all that. Of course. And the cool part, I've never jumped on an interview and gone quicker from, hey, let's record. That was the quickest. So you have the record as of right now. So cool.
Yes. Yeah. Well, because I believe, Alan, and you've done this enough times, this is what the audience wants to hear, I think. At least when I tune in, I want to hear the behind the scenes snippets. And sometimes things become too polished, too manufactured, and you lose the reality of the whole thing.
100%. I mean, especially now more than ever. And
yeah,
at the end of the day, the behind the scenes, we used to say this all the time on the show, early hyperconscious days before we rebranded to Next Level University. We used to say, let's pull back the curtain on the truth of what it really takes.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. So first of all, thank you for being flexible with your timing today. I had a little last minute text from my son, which is, hey, Dad, need a ride. I'm like, oh, didn't have that one planned today. So I appreciate the flexibility. And if you're familiar with my show, you know I'm just to have a great conversation with an interesting person. I like to hear stories. I like to dig into the behind the scenes, behind the moment scenes. Did my research on you. I'm excited to talk to you today. I'm fascinated by this idea of Next Level University. And I want to have, and I got to be, so I'm about entertaining and informing, not informing and boring. So part of entertaining and informing is having some fun with my guests. So I got to have fun with you right off the bat, my friend. I saw Next Level University. I loved it. I went through it all. I loved it. And I said to myself, dude, what's this guy know? I could be his dad. I'm 52. This guy is probably 30, 26. He's talking about changing people's lives. I'm like, sign me up. And I say that obviously tongue in cheek because we're talking to different, we're talking the same but different audiences. But nothing but respect for what you and your partner have built, my friend.
Thank you. Yeah, I joke. I say I'm hoping to hit puberty at 36. So I look 15. I am 35.
Oh, I love it.
And I'm trying to be wiser than I used to be. That's
okay. So I can't be your dad then. Yeah, good. You're old enough not to be my dad. I'm sorry. You're old enough not to be my son. I think
so.
Yeah.
But I look young enough to be. So that's
Oh man, that's so. I like to. So my audience knows me well enough. I fanboy over my guests. So like, Keith, we love when you get all fanboy over your guests. And like, I know because I kind of get engaged with them. I need my audience to care about you like I care about you because I did my research. Tell the story about Alan Lazarus. And I'll start it with this. Your LinkedIn profile says this. At 2, you lost your dad in a car accident. At 26, you almost lost your life in a car accident. And then you said, I got to make some changes.
100%. That's the very quick version right there. And the car accident for me was extra impactful because I spent so to kind of clarify there, I'm 2 years old, my father's 28 years old, and he dies in a car accident. I'm 26 years old, living quote unquote American dream,
Yeah.
corporate job, selling industrial automation equipment, computer engineer with an MBA, top 1% earner, not net worth earner. I've had someone be very upset when I said that. It's like earner, making nearly $200,000 a year, paid off 84 grand worth of school debt in a single year, no kids, no family, very low expenses, and lots and lots and lots of income. I remember $12,000 biweekly checks. Plus, they had a big referral program, and I was bringing all my friends from college to the company. And it was work hard, play hard, was the motto. And I used to say work hard, play harder. And so I grew up, and I didn't know any of this at the time, but I grew up in a pleasure-centered paradigm where it was about achievement and friends. And a paradigm, for those of you who don't know, a paradigm is essentially a deep belief about the meaning of life. And you kind of grow up in one. You get enculturated in one. And so I was 26 and I get in a car accident, and the Volkswagen Passat that I was driving definitely saved my life. I used to call this thing the tank. And it was a steel trap, German engineered car. And I saw pictures of that car. I've seen pictures of my dad's car, and it would just mess me up, man. So physically I was okay, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually I was not. And so the quickest way that I can describe it, and obviously I didn't know any of this at the time, it's all in reflection, obviously, but I was successful from the outside in prior to 26 years old. After 26 years old, I started to flip that script, and I started to focus on being successful from the inside out. And that's really been the journey. And now I'm 9 years into that journey. And to say I've become obsessed with personal growth, I would say is an understatement. And I don't say that to brag, but I say I found personal growth and personal development, and I just was like, this is the way. This is it right here. This is my thing. And so I built a whole business around it, built a podcast around it. And here I am 9 years later, just kind of riding the compound effect of how do I get a little better each day? How do I help others do the same? And, if you want to know me in a nutshell, I've got it written on a whiteboard in my corner of my office. It says, you are here to maximize your own unique potential, and to help others do the same. And everything else is secondary. That's what I have written. And I actually, before I even got on this interview, I actually looked at that before I went to the bathroom, and I was like, okay, it's Friday night. This is a little later than I had expected. I know you got high energy. I've listened to your show. You've got high energy that I am not going to match, sir. Not going to be able to match, not without a 5-hour energy shot. But I just said, Alan, just go serve, go practice your craft, go maximize your potential, and help others do the same. And that was the moment I had with myself, and here we are.
I love your passion for what you speak. Yeah, those are the words that I want to use. I love the passion for what you speak, for what you believe. Is there a sense of deeper spirituality to this, Alan?
Yeah, calling, I would say, and thank you. I would say that, you ever see old content and of yourself, and I used to do fitness modeling and blah, blah, blah. And I would see these old videos of myself, and it's so fascinating because I came across one recently of me in my mid-20s. I was fitness model, fitness coach, fitness competitor, doing fitness shows, definitely in great shape. One of the only things that's gone downhill since then. But anyways, just my whole world was fitness, and that was right after my car accident, actually. So like mid to late 20s. Mm-hmm. And I heard ego in my voice. Mm-hmm. And it was a Snapchat video, and it was just deep in my phone. I got to clean that thing out, seriously. But I remember thinking to myself, that's all that is. It's just not, it doesn't have the depth that it does now. And that's okay, because I was in my mid-20s, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm grateful that you say that it's passion, but it's deeper than that. I would say it's a calling, and without getting too heavy here, I would say, sometimes I say this to my EA, or we have a 21-person team now, and a lot of times they'll ask, like, why do you work every day? Why all this stuff? Because I'm big on showing up every day too. Mm-hmm. We do an episode every single day.
I can tell.
Yeah, and it really is. It's every day, right? And people ask, like, why do you put yourself through this? Like, why? And I say, it's interesting. I don't want to do this necessarily. I kind of have to. And for those who haven't had the midlife, in my case, quarter life crisis, I was not fulfilled prior to maximizing my unique potential. For me, I used to try to party. I used to try to have fun. I used to try not to focus on grinding and growing and improving every day. And for me, it just was deeply unfulfilling. And so, yeah, it's definitely a calling, more than a business. I think I've built a business underneath the calling more than, the other way around.
I'm pausing because I want to be thoughtful with my question. The calling is underlined by what, though? Like, what's the core? Like, let's get real. Let's pull that onion back right to what is it?
So it's interesting because when I was a kid, I feel like it was born in wanting significance. Not having a dad, not having a male role model.
Mm.
Definitely looking around me, and quite frankly, I used to be bashful about this stuff, but I'm just going to call a spade a spade. I grew up on the boulevard of broken dreams. I mean, just no one was fulfilled at all in my childhood. And in many ways, again, white suburbia, just not a great environment. And there was no personal growth whatsoever to be had. I mean, zero personal development, right? Not exactly goals and dream oriented. And so I grew up in that as someone who had, I think, a powerful mind, a lot of adversity, and someone who believed in himself a lot, which I now realize is not common. And I aimed really high. And so what's underneath the calling? I think it started from significance of not feeling significant, not having a dad, not having a male role model, not being able to get my stepdad's attention. But I think after 26, it became so much more than that because, quite frankly, I got a lot of the significance. I got the beautiful model girlfriend, and I got the well over 6-figure salary, and I got a lot of the shiny stuff. And sometimes you have to get the shiny stuff to realize that that's obviously not what it's about. But when you're a kid, you do. You think it is. You think it is. You see, Brad Pitt on Troy in 2004 just being unbelievably good looking, storming the beach. And then when you become that, when you become your own hero, you realize that was never what it was about, But you had to go on that journey to figure it out. So I think underneath it started as significance, and now it really is just how much can I do with all I've been given? How far can I take this thing? And how many people can I help, and how much better can I get? And mathematically, I'm a computer engineer and math guy, and if you crunch the numbers, if you're curious, I would love to show you the numbers, but it gets wild, the compound effect of what's possible with small percent improvements over time.
Oh, I know. That's the magic of compounding, time, compounding money, compounding whatever you want, right? Is small improvements, 1%, 1%, 1%. I speak of accountability daily, with my show and with my audience. And that's the biggest challenge for every single human being from my experience. And I suspect you would agree, is consistently showing up to do 1% every single day. I was writing a post today, and it's in my draft, and the hook was, Alan, if you're just going to dabble in LinkedIn, don't bother.
Yeah.
Like actually, because you're just wasting your time. Like you're actually wasting your time. So you might as well go and spend time with your family. If you're going to go dabble like in the social media kind of, I'm going to go market myself. I'm going to go post something today. Okay, great. That's awesome. Okay, good. Do it yesterday? No. Do it tomorrow? No, I kind of forgot. Then what? Then go spend time with your kids. Mm-hmm. Right? Because if you don't do something consistently daily, you're not going to get the 1% results compounded daily. Hard for people to do, right? You hit gold young. I'll use that terminology. You're making cash, model girlfriend, good physique, probably a lot of attention, people looking at you, right? Status, et cetera. Then you realize that the money didn't really mean anything, did it?
In the life or death situation with the car accident, and again, obviously it was, for me, compounded by the fact that my dad did die at 28.
Yes.
So for me, it wasn't, I could have died. It was, whoa.
Yeah. I'm on path to dying.
Yeah, that was, I'm lucky, very lucky to be alive type of thing. And so yeah, at that moment, money meant nothing, absolutely nothing. But it is the tool that you use to build. And I think that is what matters. So I don't like to say money doesn't matter, because it does. But it is different than what you think, I think.
And so I would agree with that, because I've been on a fortunate path myself. I, bootstrapped the business and had a wonderful exit with it, and was thrust into being able to go buy whatever I want and spend money wherever I want and do whatever I wanted with it. But then quickly realized how unfulfilling that was, chasing the next Tom Ford release. Like, wait a minute, I just bought that shirt different color last year. Why am I spending the same money again? Because I wasn't raised that way. I was, put it this way, I got a Tesla Roadster in my garage wrapped up in a tarp, and I drive a 2008 Jeep with 250,000 kilometers on it.
Nice.
That just tells you everything about me right there in that statement. Nice. Right. So because now I'm chasing, hey, let's go live in a tent in some backwoods and go experience culture instead of staying in the Ritz-Carlton. Right.
I saw your the story of your podcast and some of the highlights there, that you've done some interesting things for sure. And that's the thing too, because full spectrum, the people who think because I grew up poor, right?
Yes.
I mean, we did well. My stepdad left at 14, and when he left, I got free lunch at school because our income was so low. So very poor. And, Salvation Army for clothes, bootstrap my way. Didn't know how I was going to go to college. Straight A's in high school, financial aid scholarships, got to go. And then after college, I mean, it was a computer engineer in today's age just does well. You just do well, right?
Yes.
Everyone needs you. Not enough people, not enough computer engineers, right? Supply and demand. So, me and all my friends just started doing really well. And so for me, it was just wild to go from so broke for so long to $12,000 biweekly. Some people don't understand when you're making that kind of money and you have no family, no expenses, no home, it's just money. So I ended up with $150,000 in an investment account, and you just have to find ways to make your money make money, and then that compounds. And so, to your point, I think that people who grow up broke, they tell themselves a story that all their pain would go away if they had money, and there's some truth to that, but not as much as they think. But ironically, thank you. Ironically, they have to go find that out for themselves, and that's actually one of the reasons why I try to help people with wealth, because once you start to be financially free, the other needs on Maslow's hierarchy or whatever, they become fulfillment becomes the focus. But when your struggle bus, paycheck to paycheck, or even worse, fulfillment can't be the focus. You're not going to think, oh, what am I going to be doing in 10 years when you aren't paying your bills now? And some people can do that. But when you're in scarcity, the mind won't allow you to project into the future as far. Typically, some people are exceptions to that. I think you might be one of them, but
it's tapping into that dreamer that's caught in that grind. And they're dreaming about being an entrepreneur, and they're saying, how can I go and how can I do it? Do I have the courage to go get a second and third job? Do I have the courage to, or the ability to do this and this kind of sacrifice? Because some people are accepting of their space and their grind, their role, their job in life. Some aspire to be like yourself or maybe like myself, but then don't know how to get there. Right. And then they're stuck in that grind. It's like, oh, how do I can't afford to not make any income for a year and a half while I build my business. Right. Some people just, that's a big decision to do. Big risk. Right.
I used to be a little naive in this, honestly. I think early on, and this is the fascinating thing, and maybe this is a discussion for us, I actually don't think people who have high self-belief understand what it's like not to. So I don't think the people who have high self-belief understand what it's like not to.
Oh yeah. So I can relate to that because I look in the mirror and I believe that I can accomplish anything in the absolute world. I then have to tell myself, well, no, Keith, you can't go fly an F-18 airplane. You're probably not going to go and do surgery on somebody. But in my head, Alan, the first thing I think of is I can do anything. And I have this resolve and this anger when somebody doubts me.
Oh, same. That's a self-belief that is super rare. And I never knew that until I had a business partner for the last 7 years who struggles with self-belief. Now, he has more self-belief than most, and he's building it. Yeah, exactly.
Well, so I want to talk about this because my business partner was the same. Let's go there in a few moments, but let's stick on this. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's been fascinating as hell because he's like, dude, that doesn't make any sense to people with low self-belief. What you just said will not land for anyone who struggles with self-doubt. I used to sound like that. I literally used to say this. I swear to you. I used to say this. I never question whether or not I can do something. I only ever question whether or not I want to.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a yes for you. 90% of humans would be like, what?
Yes.
So now what I understand is self-belief is actually built. And in psychology, it's called self-efficacy. Mm-hmm. And so there's two types. One is I have discipline and I can do the behavior. I can show up and I can do the work. But there's a sneaky one that no one knows about, which is I need to go figure out what work to do. Reverse engineering. So as a kid, I'm not even kidding, this might sound arrogant, but as a kid, I had both of those 10 out of 10. Mm-hmm. So I never understood why people didn't have bigger dreams. It didn't make any sense to me. Mm-hmm. To me, it's like, I remember genuinely contemplating lawyer, politician, president versus. I know it's funny, but I'm not even kidding. As a kid,
I love it.
I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want
to. Why not? Right? Yeah, I want to be an astronaut. I think I want to be the president of the United States. Right? Why not?
I genuinely considered it because I asked myself, And again, as some people probably won't believe that, but I genuinely remember being like, no, I don't think I want to do that. Not from an ego place, from like I'm a kid actually contemplating this. My other path was engineer, MBA, CEO. And that's the route I went. And that was my honest truth. As a kid, it didn't make sense why I couldn't do that. I'm a U.S. citizen, right? I'm a white Caucasian male. I did the math. It's possible.
Yeah.
I grew up in adversity.
Yes.
I had a father who died at 2. Like, it is a possibility. Now, I know that sounds crazy to a lot of people, but people like me, it doesn't sound crazy. There's just very few people with that level of self-belief. And so like Will Smith, for example, he'd be like, yeah, you could do it. But that's Will Smith, right? You ever hear the 60 Minutes where he's like, why would you ever be realistic? Yeah, you and I are like, yeah, why would you ever be realistic? Everyone else is going, what a loony.
But this is where I look at people and I'll look at people in a baffled sense when they're like, yeah, but that's Will Smith. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but Will Smith puts his pants on the same way that I do. And you know what? One day Will Smith was a Will Smith.
That's what I'm saying. Same. It turns out if you don't have high self-belief, you can't actually think that.
Yeah.
And now I help, and again, my community is people who struggle with self-belief. And because of Kevin, you attract what you are. And what's cool is I get to reach an audience most people like me don't. Computer engineer who believes in himself 10 out of 10, who was basically partied and still got straight A's in calculus. That isn't normal. But I never knew it wasn't normal because I had no idea that that's rare. And so now I do. And so now I have a unique opportunity. Our listeners are 90% empowered women who struggle with courage, confidence, and clarity, who want more fulfillment out of their career and their intimate relationships. How many men like me get a chance to speak into the lives of women who are like computer engineers are not statistically good at like communicating? And I always joke, I'm not that strong of a communicator. I used to think I was, until I started learning that most people think in words, not numbers. I think in numbers. And we can talk about the modalities of thinking if you're interested. But I now realize, yeah, for a group of engineers, I'm a great communicator. You're going to love me if you're an engineer. You're going to be like, I resonate with this guy. That makes perfect sense. Logic, rationality, calculus, algebra, numbers, statistics, bell curves, leverage curves, right? If you don't think in numbers, you're going to think I'm a loony. And I now understand how to communicate to people who don't think like me. And that's actually the value, because the righties and the righties don't like the lefties and the lefties don't like the righties in this metaphor. But what we want is not what we need. If what we wanted was what we needed, we would already have it. And so I have this really cool opportunity to speak into the lives of emotionally driven people as a hyper-rational, hyper-logical, long-term strategic thinker.
Who are you? I love this. And my ambition when I go into every conversation with a guest is to learn something. And man, I've been talking to you for 20, Uncle's got to put his glasses on over here, 25 minutes. And I'm learning something every second from you, Alan. And what I'm learning from you right now is how much I identify with you. Let me explain. So I got a couple years on you, but I have my
one or two.
A couple. It's the couple, my friend. I'm seeing my past in you. And what I mean by the past is your age right now and how you're speaking to your audience and you recognizing. So I found success. Let me just kind of try to relate to you. I found my success so I got myself going as the internet was coming out. I'm like a nerdy guy. I can speak to programmers. I can understand programming, but I can also layman it down and talk to Joe Smith. And so I was raised at that time where the internet was coming and people like scared of the internet. Yet I got it. I understood it. I can do some development, but I can talk to the layman. And I'm rough around the edges, big time. I'm not your suit, right? But I'm also a leader who extremely believes in himself, like yourself. And I was able to, as I built my company, find people that were resonating with that messaging, and they jumped on and started drinking the Kool-Aid, like yourself. And I learned that, okay, if I can empower people through my communication and my language, there's magic here. And I think you're saying the same thing, is that once you realize, because you know what, you are a good communicator, Alan. But what it sounds like to me is that as you started your journey of communication, you recognized that was your superpower.
I think, actually, it's funny you say superpower. I have superpower equals rationality on my whiteboard.
Yeah.
And I think, our gifts are hidden in our pain and our frustration. I always ask, people ask, how do you find your purpose? And I say two questions. What pisses you off most and what breaks your heart?
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is people's irrationality has always really bothered me. I grew up in an environment that was very irrational. There was no logic. It was just whatever's fun. Belief systems weren't based on truth. It was based on whatever served the purpose of the moment. It was just nonsense, quite frankly, right? And
Interesting.
you grow up with these heroes that you think are amazing. And then as you get older and you grow up, you realize, oh, wow, that person never earned that pedestal. I mean, they just were big kids, right? And as you mature and you become rational, you realize that irrationality bothers you. And there's two things you can do about that. You can get bitter and old and miserable, or you can help people create rich, dynamic, positive lives through more rational decision making. Uh-huh. And so that's, our whole business is built around this idea of, okay, I grew up around no one fulfilled. Mm-hmm. Marriage scared me because everyone looked miserable to me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Everyone had jobs they hated. Mm-hmm. No one was excited about the future, and they only lived for the now, partying, all that. And I became the opposite. Not only was I naturally inclined mathematically, but I thought super long term. Not always. When I was drinking, I did not. Okay, so some of that did rub off on me. But I thought super long term. I believed in myself. No one around me believed in themselves. They only pretended to with ego. And by the way, Keith, this is something that helped me tremendously. People actually can't tell the difference between me and you actually having real self-belief and someone else's ego.
Dig into that.
So I had a executive admin for a long time. Her name was Amy. Mm-hmm. Absolute sweetheart, but did not believe in herself much. And again, she wouldn't mind me sharing that. Mm-hmm. I worked with her for 4 years. Very close friend of mine. And I was her fitness coach long before we worked together and blah, blah, blah. And I had gotten her down to her dream weight of 127 pounds. She was pumped, looking great, feeling great. And then she had slowly added the weight. And that's not uncommon, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember saying, Aim, we've done this before. We can do it again. Mm-hmm. And she just stopped believing in herself. Every pound that got added, she just believed in herself a little less, less self-esteem, less self-confidence, less self-belief, less self-worth. And so I'm like, Aim, we can turn this around. What I figured out is that she doesn't believe that she can do it. She did believe she can do it with me. Now, I said, Aim, she was actually really vulnerable with me one time behind the scenes. And she said, Alan, I just don't think I can do it. I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it's possible. I don't think I ever get back to 127. And I remember thinking, and I said, can you do me a favor? She said, yeah. I said, can you pretend that you do believe it? Just for a second. I just want you to fake it. I want you to pretend. Okay? She hyped up, started pretending that she believed it. And I was like, oh, you sound just like me. I used to wonder why people would talk about changing the world and building a business and then go to the beach. I used to wonder. I didn't say something and then go do the opposite. The difference between me saying I'm going to achieve XYZ is that I'm dead serious. Like, I want to be a fitness model. Everyone called me crazy, and I just did it. 41 photo shoots, fitness competitions, whatever. It turns out other people are actually just talking. And the reason why is because they think everyone else is too, because they are projecting their own lack of self-belief onto everyone else. I wrote this in my journal the other day. The potential you see in others is not real. It's a projection of what you would do if you were them. Now, this is it. I believe in people more than I can possibly describe, to a detriment. Genuinely, the amount of time and effort I have poured into other people's dreams is genuinely alarming. And I learned, and I had to grow up and realize that they do not care. They aren't real dreams. I have so many friends that talked to me as a kid about all these dreams and all these goals and all these things. You're 52 years old. I look back and I am genuinely saddened. I'm genuinely saddened at how few of them ever are still. None of them are even still pursuing their dreams.
Oh man! So I'm building a business on what you're talking about, because it saddens me that people give up on achieving their big, hairy, audacious goals. Oh, I wish I could go climb a mountain. Okay, let's go climb one. Oh, I can never do that. Well, why not?
People climb mountains.
And I'm not talking about strapping crampons on and putting a rope on. I'm talking about just putting one foot in front of the other and let's go do it together.
Let's do a little one first.
Precisely.
And then we'll do a little bigger one. But I don't know if they can't necessarily, and there's neuroscience behind this, they can't envision it. They've done studies where some people can only imagine a future with a stranger, not themselves. This is like an actual skill. It's a tangible skill to be able to see yourself in 10 years. And I had no idea that I was one of the only ones in my environment growing up that could do that. And everyone thought I was full of it. Have you ever achieved something and people come to you and they go, oh my God, look what you did. And it's like, I literally told you I was going to do that.
Oh yeah, that was my business.
Right. And they're so shocked. You want to know why they're shocked, Keith? They didn't think you were going to do it.
Oh, I know. I live it today. Yeah. People think I'm a whack job doing what I do. I'm like, all right.
That you were gonna do it because most people aren't.
Well, and again, precisely, which is why my brand is showing up every single day, like yourself. Because my wife said to me at Christmas time, she says, Keith, how empowering is it? How empowering is it to go onto LinkedIn and your social channels on Christmas Day or on Boxing Day or on New Year's, broadcasting to everybody when every other coach out there is not? And I'm not out there to compare. That's not what I'm suggesting. Yeah. What I'm suggesting is that, well, yeah, that's what I do. That's who I am. So if you're looking for somebody to show up every single day because you don't have the courage to or don't know how to, I'll tell you what, man, I will be there tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. and I invite you to join me. And if you don't come tomorrow, you want to come to, I'll be there the next day too. Trust me, I'll be there. So, and I'm telling you, people are now, because I pop up on everybody's feed on LinkedIn every single day at noon. Bilous, you're still doing that. Yeah, that's what I said I was going to do. Right? Like,
that's rare. Every strength comes with a huge blind spot.
Yes.
You have a strength for consistency. You have a strength of self-belief. So it comes with a huge blind spot.
Right.
It comes with a huge weakness. So we have a ton of self-belief, right? And again, even this won't resonate for someone who doesn't. So I empathize. Mm-hmm. But a lot of this conversation will not resonate with someone who struggles with self-doubt. And I'm cognizant of that.
Yes.
I'm cognizant of that. Okay.
Yes.
Will Smith would love this episode, right? Okay. But he's not listening. Okay.
Right.
So here's my point. Every strength comes with a huge weakness and a huge blind spot. Let me give you an example. Okay. Self-belief is a strength, but it comes with a huge weakness, which is arrogance and overconfidence and over-optimism, particularly with other people.
That got me into trouble. If I can interject with you, that got me into trouble in my life.
Same. Of course it did. You
Big
can't
trouble.
have the strength without the weakness.
My values were all messed up, Alan. I didn't have my pillars were all messed up.
But your goals were on point. That's self-belief in a nutshell. But self-worth is another thing. And
all the fucking bridges and roads behind me all blown up. But hey, I got the cup. I got the championship. Look at my bank account. Yep. You know, and again, I'm being real with my audience because they like, right? And you're like, oh, okay.
And little did I know that was deeply unfulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways it wasn't worth it. And what I found out through massive pain and failure, quite frankly, is self-worth and self-belief are two different things. My girlfriend taught me that. One time she said, self-belief and self-worth are two different things, right? And I was like, nope. I was being playful. But I seriously was like, trampoline. I call it a trampoline moment. My brain is like, nope. And then I thought about it. I'm like, oh my God. They're two different things. Self-belief is your certainty level that you can achieve it. Self-worth is, do you deserve it? One of them is a feeling, and the other one is a capability, a skill. It's a skill to be able to envision something and make it real. But once you get there, do you set and honor boundaries? Do you invest in yourself? Do you keep the small promises you make to yourself? Do you have the courage to speak up to bullies who make fun of you and tear you down and say you can't do it and say you suck? Do you XYZ? And so a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, people who have a really tough childhood have super high self-belief and super low self-worth. And that is a recipe for disaster, alcohol, drugs, and lots of success. And I've seen that time and time again. And fortunately, I, at 26, outgrew that, transformed through that, through obviously the quarter life crisis is what I call it. But self-worth and self-belief are two different things. And some people have inflated self-worth and they think they deserve with very little effort and 3 easy payments at $39.95. They deserve without showing up every day. We call those the spoiled brats of the world, right? And then you've got the opposite of no matter how much work you do, no matter how hard you work, no matter how much you achieve, you still don't think you deserve much of anything. And so you're still earning it, you're still striving, but you're not arriving. And then other people are arriving by default because they grew up in right? So it's fascinating. And so if you understand the self-belief and self-worth quadrants, I have these quadrants, then you can really identify where you are and where you need to be. And I think leadership in a nutshell is just helping people build their self-belief and self-worth. That's really what I've come to in leadership is my team. I want to help my team build their self-belief and self-worth because someone with high self-belief and high self-worth, not fake, not ego, not inflated, not BS, but real, honest, homegrown, organic self-belief and self-worth. Now that is someone of substance and of depth, and that's who I aspire to be, and I think that's what makes you fulfilled. And fulfilled people don't hurt people, which is what the world, I think, desperately needs.
What very well said, Alan. I subscribe to that same theory. I simplify it in a sense where I try to just get to the raw human and help that raw human being the best that they can. I think a lot of business is overcomplicated. We just got to get to the root of the human. And if we can empower the root of the human, it's magic. There's nothing more complex than that. It's not about return to office mandates. It's not about checklists. It's not about this system, that system. It's about sitting down with Alan, getting to know you as the human being, getting to understand where your emotions and your ideas and where your values fall into the quadrant, and then massage you to greatness. Frankly, I inherit. That's how I built my business, which was finding exceptional human beings. I'll keep using that term.
Diamonds in the rough.
And then just empowering the hell out of them.
Yep.
Yeah, the diamonds in the rough.
Diamonds in the rough.
I remember
eagles with a broken wing. That's what you find.
Oh man, great analogy.
Eagles who have been convinced they're duck.
I went to my company, Alan, was a remote company, virtual business. So I never really back in the days when the internet was just starting out, right? So we're talking early days when that wasn't even a thing.
Back when I was doing my semi-pro game.
That's it, buddy.
Yeah, I was playing Halo too.
That's it. Yeah. We won't tell nobody. But I remember we did a live in-person event and a bunch of people from my company showed up. And I love them all, but they all were the people with the broken wings. Nobody would, because they all, and again, I love them, but they all were either tattooed or had facial rings. Starbucks wasn't hiring. The bank wasn't hiring. The regular society wasn't hiring them.
Yeah.
But I was like, hey, Alan, you're an awesome human being. You got a great skill set. I don't give a hell what you look like. I don't give a hell what your sexuality is. I don't give a hell what your religion, your beliefs are. You're a good human being with a good skill set. Let's go to town, man.
Nice.
And when you find those people, oh my God, you can just create magic.
Magic. Yeah. It's so one little thing leadership wise, I have this sort of, I guess you can call it a framework, but I think there are eagles, and the eagles, by the way, I think are the people that are just naturally gifted. Michael Jordan was just an eagle, right? Pun intended with the fly.
I think I'm a naturally gifted eagle leader, like Michael. Yeah. So you talk about self-belief. Right. I feel like I'm that. I feel like you want a great leader that can take your company or yourself to the next level? Call me.
Self-belief is why. That's a thing, right?
Yeah.
No matter, and I used to, so I also feel that way. It's like the X factor, people call it.
Yeah.
I remember in college and in high school, I used to party, and I would host the best parties, quote unquote, right? But that's the thing. I was leading, but I was leading in a maybe semi-toxic way. We had a lot of fun. I wouldn't call it toxic. I would call it
relate.
I would, yeah, I know. I know. You and I meet a lot of people. We know people. I know.
You bring the music, you bring the party, everybody's eating out of your hand, right?
You bring people together, and you always have, and you always will.
Yes.
And it's self-belief. Self-belief is so intoxicating.
Yes.
For people.
Yes.
Even though it triggers people. And even though they talk behind our backs, for sure. Okay. Yes. So anyways, that's facts. So the eagles, everyone's an eagle in something. Okay. So everyone's an eagle in something for you, leadership, self-belief. Okay. The eagles are naturally gifted. All right. Then there's the eagles with a broken wing who basically want to be an eagle, and they really are natural born eagles, but they've been convinced by ducks that they are ducks. And I will explain.
Yeah.
The next one are ducks who want to stay ducks. Those are hard for me. The ducks who want to stay ducks, I'm just a pain in their butt because I'm always driving to the next level. Always. I mean, I just can't stop, and I won't. So I'm going to be the pain in the ass that you think one day, I hope. Now, the ducks who want to stay ducks have to be off the team. It is what it is. Good luck. Enjoy yourself. Okay, now here's the type that I think is dangerous. Okay, so you've got the eagles. You've got the eagles who have been taught that they're ducks. And then you've got the ducks who know they're ducks who want to stay ducks. Okay? Cool.
Okay, yeah.
The fourth one.
Oh man, this is a farm lesson.
Is the ducks pretending to be golden eagles. These are the people who have low self-belief deep down, but they're pretending that it's really high. These are the people that have to tear you down to feel better about themselves.
Yes. Yep.
These are the people that are fake, and they know it, and it's all status, it's all perception, it's not real, and they know it. And so if the real deal comes around, aka an eagle with a broken wing, they bully the eagle. So everyone who thinks they're an ugly duckling, I bet you're an eagle with a broken wing and just don't know it yet.
Interesting.
I just got the chills.
Philosophy. Hey Al, did you know this was what kind of energy, what were you bringing to today's meeting? Because I didn't expect this. This is awesome.
I didn't either, man. I told you I was about to go to the bathroom. I read my sign and I was like, all right, let's bring. It's been a long week. It's been a long day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm gonna bring my best, and here we are.
Well, because I was kind of feeling the same way. My afternoon was kind of shifted up with my schedule, and I'm like, okay, I really want to meet Alan, but I know he shuffled the schedule for me, and I'm like, it's Friday, 4:30 Friday. I never meet this late either, and I'm like, I'll be frank, maybe part of one of my feet was out of the door before I even got here, maybe like yours. But I sat down, I saw your energy, and I'm like, oh, okay, let's go, man. This is awesome.
You know what I noticed from you? I'll just give you this piece of feedback because that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Your email had no entitlement. You were very kind and you were very, I'm so sorry, my bad. I do have some time if you still have time. There was no entitlement.
Oh,
so you're welcome. You're welcome. Entitlement drives me nuts.
Oh.
Entitlement drives me nuts. And if you had shown any level of entitlement, I would have canned this in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But that's one thing I want to give you feedback on is, it was very respectful. It was very respectful of my time, and it wasn't entitled. You weren't entitled to my time, and that was very clear in your energy. So that's I think that's what's made this interaction so great.
So I did a live show earlier today, and I quietly said to the guest, I'm like, I never really say this on the air, but you might be one of my favorite guests. And he's like, oh, thanks, man. But now nobody's listening. Alan, you actually might be my favorite guest right now.
You're funny, man. You're funny. I won't let it go to my head.
But I'm going to tell you, though, I do not know how we don't actually have more than probably 50 conversations, because we clearly are drinking the same Kool-Aid, and we've been talking for 45 minutes and we haven't even got to the 9,000 other things I want to speak about with you. So let's get to maybe the second one that I want to talk to you about, which is your business partner, because that's fascinating to me as well. Yep. So I had a business partner which always looked at this glass, was always half empty, always. Mm-hmm. And I was the guy, well, no, but it's full, man. And it was an awesome dynamic, which I think is the same as you and your business partner, isn't it?
100%. We call it productive paranoia.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there has been some times in our relationship, because we were partners for, I don't want to cry on the air, but we've had to, I've gone on my own. Like, I'm Justin Timberlake now. I'm not part of NSYNC. And Maurice is on his own, doing his own thing now with his family, and he's at a different stage in his life, and I'm doing my own thing. But that's a whole other conversation about separating from your business partner. We'll talk about that on another show. But I got to tell you, the love that I have for that partner, the definition of roles, but then the humor that we had along the way when there was times in our life where I was like, no, man, the fucking glass is half empty. He's like, come on, man, it's full. He's like, wait a minute. Did you just say it was half
the opposite?
Yeah, totally opposite. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we're over time, you kind of start swapping the Kool-Aid, right? Or swapping the values and philosophy. Talk about the relationship with your business partner. A, how did you guys get together? And B, talk about what that's like. And then C, clearly knowing what your roles are. Because I know in our relationship, clearly defining our roles, once we had that, magic.
Oh, it's the best. It's interesting. If you can find a way to be emotionally mature enough to be in a business partnership with someone who is the yin to your yang, someone who, this is the way that I describe it.
Yeah.
We have the same core aspirations. We have very similar core values, but we have different core competencies.
Yes.
Okay. So we're aligned in terms of the future we want and the way we go about it. But I'm super high in self-belief, definitely overly optimistic. We have an event coming up in March, and he's like, dude, we got to stay humble, man. Right? We got to stay humble. I'm like, dude, it's going to be great. And he's the guy, what if it snows? And I'm like, I would never have even thought of that. It's like March. It could snow, right? It probably won't, but it could. He's what I would call productive paranoia. And here's the thing. He's not doing it to take wind out of my sails. And that's the key.
No, he's actually complimenting you, because with you not thinking about that storm, 100%. He is. 100%. It's giving your brain time to think about the things that you need to think about.
100%. And so we joke every single time we do something together in business. Yes. It goes worse than I thought, better than he thought.
Yes, exactly it.
And what's hilarious is that sometimes when him and I are really winning and really in it, it's actually the opposite. Because when we're winning, I start to get skeptical and I start to get more humble, and he actually gets really pumped, and so then he starts to get all optimistic, and I'm like, well, we're about to lose because coming off a win, right? So I'm big on the fail forward thing, but at the end of the day, it's this. And if you're on video, I'm kind of doing my hands like that. And sometimes you are growing apart and then together and apart and then together. It's expand, contract, and hopefully the trend line is up, and hopefully you can just protect each other's hearts along the way. And that's really ultimately the only way we've been able to get to where we are. And now to address the roles thing, I have a simple framework. You have goals, roles, responsibility. Goals, roles, responsibility. It's a pyramid, and the top is goals. And you can't achieve a goal without first taking on the role and the responsibility. You call it accountability. I call it responsibility. Same type of thing. But so Kev is actually awesome with people, so good at building relationships. Everyone loves Kev. I'm not as easily likable. You have a lot of self-belief, so you probably like me. People with self-doubt struggle with me a little bit because I'm very mathematical, and emotionally driven people who struggle with self-doubt feel like I don't get them. And honestly, I've come to realize I probably don't. So fair. I try, but I probably don't. But everyone loves Kev. I mean, he's hilarious. He's relatable. He's hardworking as hell. I mean, just grew up coming from absolutely nothing. And he's got work ethic 10 out of 10. And he's humble. It's just awesome. And so we complement each other a lot. You know, I started out as the overly optimistic, self-belief, aim for the top of the mountain, shoot for the moon, land amongst the stars. He came from the, I don't even know if I can do much of anything. I was the gas station kid, and let's go for this ride and see how it goes. And along the way, we both matured as men, and we both grew up without fathers, by the way. So his father left when he was a kid, before he was even born, or a little after. And my father obviously passed away when I was 2. So we actually host a Father's Day event every year. We used to spend Father's Day together every year. And then eventually it's like, why don't we do something? So now we host 2 events a year with a charity called the Next Level Hope Foundation. And we do a Father's Day event for single parents. And we get kids together at the YMCA, and we all play sports. And we turn a traditionally sad day into a really happy day. And then we also do a holiday event as well in December each year, and it's been really, really cool. It's been really, really cool. So yeah.
How did you guys find each other?
Kev and I, this is so funny too, because the yin and yang thing in high school. So we were friends in middle school, way back.
Yeah.
He came over. He thought I was the rich kid, and that was before my stepfather left. Then in high school, he actually hated me. He was deeply insecure. I was overly confident, right? That kind of thing.
Yes.
I was really smart. He was the kind of blue collar guy.
Yeah.
And I was the white collar dingo, in his words. And and then I went to college. He didn't. And then we reconnected in our mid-20s from a more emotionally mature place.
Yes.
And we bonded over personal development and fitness. I mean, he is in great shape. We were both bodybuilders, and we just bonded, and we talked deep existential stuff like this. And it's just been off to the races ever since, man. It's been honestly awesome. He's like the little brother I never had. Yeah. And I know he wouldn't be offended me saying that.
So I called this place the Business Athlete Performance Lab on purpose, right? A lab, because what do you do in the lab? You experiment, you attempt, and you're permitted for failure. You're allowed to fail in a lab because then you're encouraged to try again, right? But I also paired business and athlete together because I think the principles are the same. But more importantly, Alan, I love the raw conversations in a gym, right? And there's something about that, like you and your partner, those honest, raw conversations. And when you go into a gym, 45 pounds is 45 pounds. Doesn't matter what skin color you are. Doesn't matter what sex you are. Doesn't matter how healthy, how sick you are. It's 45 pounds. It is the ultimate equalizer for every human being in the gym. I love the rawness and honesty of a gym.
Doesn't matter what's in your bank account.
No.
Doesn't matter what car you drive.
Yeah.
It's assuming you're not taking any steroids or any of that, which again is a whole nother conversation, but it's the equalizer. You can't, I don't care if you're Oprah Winfrey or me or you, the Stairmaster sucks.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
It just sucks. And I always ask myself this question: can this person sit alone in a dark room on a Stairmaster with no one watching and not post it on social media, just do it for the self-esteem and the self-belief that comes from that? And if the answer is no, they are not on the NLU team.
True, isn't it? It's true. Yeah, it's absolutely true. Alan, I would love another couple of hours with you, but I know that I can't. I have a hard stop because I'm going to head out to watch my son play some hockey this evening. But I would be honored, and I would be flattered if you would join me again for another at least an hour. I want to talk about NLU. We haven't talked about it at all, and I'm sorry. I want to talk about it. I want to talk about the continued discussion with your partnership. I want to talk about ego. You've brought it up a few times. I may have a differing view on it. I think I know why you did bring it up, but here's a hook for our audience. We'll leave it out there. But I want to talk about ego a little bit with you, because I think ego, while it can be unhealthy, I think it's also good. Just, I guess it's how we frame it, right? But
I think ego can be toxic or not.
yes,
Right? I think that's a good frame of, is ego identity and positive towards something virtuous, or is it toxic, tear others down because it's a false
that's
self
fair.
that you're trying to portray for
Yes.
status?
Yeah. But the last question I want to ask you, because this one's fascinating to me, before we do say goodbye, is when you started an LU and you started your business, and you told me a number of moments ago that most of your audience are females. Mm-hmm. When you started speaking and building your community, did you think it was going to be a bunch of men, and it ended up being a bunch of females?
100%.
Because that's what I'm suspecting is what I don't know that for fact, but that's what I'm thinking. Because as you're speaking, I'm thinking, I get it. I get why females would be attuned to this messaging, and some men would be like, "No, I don't like that. Who's that guy?"
Yeah. You know what? It's interesting because Kevin and I grew up without fathers. We were both raised by two women.
Yes.
We didn't connect any of this until later. I mean, we were bodybuilder bros. I thought we were going to have a bunch of guys, right? And we have some guys, right? So I don't want to
yeah.
But at the end of the day, I was raised by my mom and my older sister primarily.
Yes.
I didn't really like my stepdad. We didn't get along.
Okay.
And he didn't like his dad. And he was raised by his mom and his Mima, his mom and his grandmother. And so I guess we have a different energy than most guys. And what I think we thought was a huge weakness, not having fathers, ended up being a huge strength, which I think is really cool, and it gets me emotional for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It strikes me because in some ways, I think I can relate as well. So my father was very hard, very different era growing up back then, right? So where maybe let's go play out in the garage and work on the cars, I would prefer being in the house with my mom making cookies, right? So I certainly can understand that female side, or the emotional maturity. That's what I'm trying to find, the emotional maturity of that, right? And the ability to have that emotional connection, right? Because I know that there's some men that I just can't relate to. Like if you're a raw hunter man guy who's out in the woods and hunting and going for meat, and I may come across I'm soft. Like I'm a soft pussycat for the most part.
Yeah. You ever see Beauty and the Beast with Gaston?
Oh yeah.
I don't do well with the Gastons, man.
Yeah.
I don't do well with the Gastons. And they hate me, man. I'll tell you what. I'm 6'2" now. I used to be a little nerd, mathematical guy.
Yeah.
In high school, all the athletes get all the attention, and being smart wasn't cool until later, right?
It's true.
But it's true, yeah. And my older sister was the most popular girl in school, and all her friends would give me pity dances, But anyways, so now I'm a lot larger and 6'2" and 200 pounds, and it's so fascinating to run into some of my old bullies.
Yes.
And there's a small part of me that just
old doubters.
The doubters and the bullies. And at the end of the day, right? Keep the chip on your shoulder. Just keep running the chip. Just don't let the chip run you.
What a great way to end this, because I'll share this with you. I recently reached out to somebody within LinkedIn who I wanted to have on my show. His response was, I don't do shows with any reviews less than 25. So I paused, looked at my bank account. I looked in the mirror, looked at the fellow, looked at myself again. All right, I'll go back to work. You come see me when you're ready. Yeah, and I'm not trying to be a jerk with that comment, but I'm because if anybody knows me well enough, they know like I got some sarcasm and some humor in this whole thing. But I'm like, honest to God, are you that
entitled? Yeah, that's entitled.
So my response was, good. I don't want you on my show anyways then. You know what I mean? It's yes, right. Exactly correct.
Good for you. Yep.
Yeah. Alan Lazarus, you are an awesome man. Dude, you are, I love your energy. Even though you don't think you have energy, you match my energy, brother. You absolutely have in your own way. I love it. I absolutely love it. I applaud you for your success. I applaud you for your journey. I love hearing you speak, man. I do. Thank you.
Keith, this interview was fire, man. You do a lot of interviews. I say this to have substance rather than to just brag. It's not about that. But I've done 1,600 episodes of our podcast coming up on it. I've got another podcast with my beautiful girlfriend, 102 episodes about how to flourish in your intimate relationship.
I saw that.
And I've guested on almost 300 other shows. Powerful conversations change lives, and we changed some lives today. So I'm proud of that. I appreciate you facilitating, and I'd love to come back.
Full of vitamin G, brother. Full of vitamin G. I take my vitamin D in the morning, my vitamin E in the morning, and you just inject me with some vitamin G. Full of gratitude.
Okay, I thought you were going to say growth, but I like it.
Yeah, vitamin G is gratitude. I'll tell you something today, man. Vitamin G is your gratitude. So every single day you take with your vitamin D, your vitamin C, your vitamin E, you make sure you take some vitamin G. That's what I'll leave you. And that's courtesy of John Graham Harper, one of my guests, Lumaflex. I like to always pump up old guests who come to my show because I get fans of my guests. But John Graham Harper comes in one day and he tells me about vitamin G. I'm like, you just changed my life. I love it. So I've hung on to it. So I passed it to you too. So vitamin G. Alan, thanks for coming out, man. I'm going to stick you back in the green room while I say goodbye to the audience and stop the recording. All right. Hang tight.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Cool. We're going to do this here. Oh, there we go. Single me. Hey, I sit here in a chair Monday to Monday. I go live 7 days a week. I have nothing else to say after that last conversation with Alan Lazarus. It was awesome. If you're just tuning in later, you're hearing this at the end, go back and hear the whole thing. It was spectacular. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Ciao.